The headlines, the issues impacting you and your family. This Week in Cincinnati on 9 on Your Side.
Good afternoon and welcome to This Week in Cincinnati. I'm Craig McKee. Today we are taking a look at the race for Hamilton County Commissioner. That contest pits incumbent Republican Chris Monzel with his Democratic challenger Stephanie Dumas. Now, we spoke with her just a few weeks ago, in fact, on This Week in Cincinnati. Monzel is seeking a third term on the commission. Before that, he served on Cincinnati City Council. He also works at GE Aviation. Joining us now, Commissioner Chris Monzel and WCPO government reporter Paula Christian. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
So, I guess the elephant in the room, let's talk about the budget.
Yeah.
If you are looking at a approximately $29 million gap issue, you actually opposed a tax increase to try to fill this gap. What was your main reason for saying no, going against other commissioners?
So there's four reasons to it that I felt why I voted no. The first one was that I didn't feel like we tried to look at any areas to cut in our budget. So instead of going asking people for more of their hard-earned money, I thought we should at least come forward with some proposals on what we could reduce in our budget first, especially since we just 18 months before passed a budget, which I voted against, that actually increased our spending and actually had projections of a sales tax growth of 4%, when in reality we only had about a 1.6% growth. So we actually over budgeted back then, which kind of caused us to be in a situation we're in today. So to me, it's like we should have cut first before going out and raising taxes. And the other issues were, secondly, we should have a specific purpose. Nobody really knew what it was for. It was just general government funding. And I think if you really said, pinpointed, this is for the heroin crisis, this is for helping out with the jail population, I think that would have been more helpful. The third point is we should have had a limited time of when it was going to be on people's tax rolls. Typically property taxes are 5 years. The union terminal tax that I was involved with is a 5-year. And in fact, that will be the first sales tax that would ever expire here in Hamilton County. So we should have had some time limit on it. And then the last point was that we should have let the voters vote on it. As I think that's what people really were upset about, is that they want to have a say in how much they're going to pay, and we didn't allow that to happen by just passing it automatically without their voter approval. You
mentioned that desire to take a look and say, okay, let's find areas that we can cut.
Yep.
Now you're looking at a 17% across. Would you be at the 17% possible cut if you had taken a look and trying to figure out, all right, if we get rid of this position or this office area, this, the smaller cuts that you could have made?
Right, well, that's the question, right? If we could have gone back in time over a year and a half ago, could we have made some of these movements that, hey, we shouldn't backfill some of these positions?
Sure.
We should have kept them vacant and just gone through the next couple of years just to see how the budget was going to turn out. But we didn't. We filled positions. We started growing the size of government, and that's put us in a situation where now, and I warned this back in March of 2017, we might have to go off and look at reducing positions, which to me is horrible.
Are you stuck now? I mean, when you're looking at 17% cut, that seems like a pretty big slice.
It is. I mean, it's not a small situation that we're in, and it's going to take us a lot of hard work to figure out where we can cut and where it should be affected.
Some of the initial ideas for cuts are rather dramatic,
yes,
and I don't think will be very popular either.
No, I
such
agree.
as cutting sheriff's patrols in certain townships,
right,
and then cuts to the coroner's office, which Commissioner Portune was concerned about. Will the evidence get old if it's sitting there for a year before they can process it?
So it kind of reminds me about the federal government when all of a sudden they have a budget issue and they want to close all the national parks, right? It's the first thing everybody kind of gets upset.
Sure.
It's like we should not be looking at cutting public safety. We should be looking at some of these other pet projects, some of these other non-essential services that we're providing, that we get rid of those first. How much is that? We're not sure, but let's cut there before we start really impacting public safety, because I think that's why people pay their taxes, is they want to feel safe in their community.
So what do you deem as non-essential then?
So we have contracts that we go out to certain agencies that, do we really need that? It's not a mandated service per the Ohio Revised Code, so why are we providing those services, to...
Anything specific that you can mention?
Like one issue actually was kind of interesting is we used to have a receptionist in the Board of County Commissioners offices.
Okay.
That has not been filled. The person left about 6 months ago. Well, our commissioners wanted to refill that position. Well, let's leave it vacant. Why do we need to have a receptionist on the 3rd floor when we have our own staff that can handle, the visitors coming in?
That's really interesting. I noticed that when I was in last time, and I wondered if she was sick.
Right. No. Yeah. So she actually took a new job.
Yeah.
And so, but they started to look at posting to bring a new person in. And it's like, well, wait a minute. That's really a non-essential position that we don't need.
But in the grand scheme of things, if you're cutting small isn't that small potatoes in the grand scheme of things?
Well, but we got to start somewhere to figure out, as you know, count the pennies, the dollars will follow. So I think that's what we need to do, is look at those type of positions around that are really non-essential, that are vacant already, and not backfill them. And that's one area I think we can do a lot of work on.
So are your constituents, is your Republican base concerned that if you lose, that county commission board will be all Democrats, and the county is kind of shifting?
I would hope so. A lot of people feel that way, regardless if they're Republican or not, based on the fact that it's great to have a balance on ideas. And I think I bring a very different mindset on how I look at solving problems, especially being an engineer, and how I try to solve problems. I think that's important, that you have that balance and different perspectives at the board. Having everyone in kind of the same mode and the same party, I think lends to groupthink that then can bring in problems down the road. And that's why I think it's important to have that.
It has to be helping your fundraising. I mean, a number of Republican elected leaders is shrinking in the county, and that has to be helping you.
Well, we appreciate all the fundraising activities we've been able to do, and we've been very blessed in having folks come forward to help our campaign. But I think it's, again, to have a common sense, logical voice out there of looking at how to solve problems, and really an independent kind of looking view on it. And someone that's not of the same party helps balance that out. And I think that's why it's important for me to stay there.
Two different questions here. For the first one, though, there's a mention about how the townships need to pick up their game and help the county more to fill some of these holes when it comes to the budget issues. What areas specifically would you like to see townships come together and help out?
Well, so townships have been being hurt right now too, and I think that kind of goes to what's happening from the state level. I mean, one of the issues besides the way we budgeted a year and a half ago is the state cuts that have come into play, and that's really been hurting not only the county but also the townships. So coming up with ideas for shared services and ways that we can utilize, that the county's performing something that the townships could use to save them money, but then also help us save some money. Those are the kind of ideas we need to look at, and that's something that's, it's going to take some time and effort, but I think we have some ideas from road maintenance and road repairs, and taking care of equipment for the different townships. Those types of things, if we're already doing it at the county, why don't we share that service, save money at the township as well?
What are some of the things folks may not follow everything as closely as others do? What kind of things are mandated? You know, you mentioned the state mandates certain things, so you can only cut certain things from your budget.
Right. So, I mean, certain mandated things are like our court system, right? I mean, the judges have to perform the judicial system. So cutting them is not allowed by the Ohio Supreme Court. So we can't go in there and just reduce them so that they can't be able to do their function of holding the justice system in process.
The sheriff's overtime budget.
Yeah, well, the sheriff is one that you can go in and cut and look at, but we can't. Well, that's something that I think we have to work with and figure out where is he spending money. The sheriff's budget is a third of our budget, 30% of it. It's the largest department, and we should be able to go in there and really look at how he's spending his money, which there's a lot of questions on. You know, from a standpoint, is that an essential service that we really need? I mean, we understand a justice center has to operate, that totally makes sense, but he has some other positions, like a receptionist somewhere, some other type of job that is not necessary. I think we need to kind of review that.
Okay, our discussion will continue with Chris Monzel in just a moment.